This is Boxes and Briefs, a podcast with real-life business stories. But we will be asking the hard questions and challenging traditions. So broaden your thinking with fresh perspectives and solve problems for business success. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Boxes and Briefs. My name is Lisa.
I'm Tori.
And today we have with us Sophie from Sophie K Coaching. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, nice to be here. Hello.
Hey, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Sophie and I'm a life and vitality coach. And essentially what I do is I help busy people find more time for the things that really bring them joy and the things that are actually important to them in their lives. I've been running this business for about 3.5 years now, and I have to say it really is my calling. It is such a beautiful space to work in, and it is such well-needed work. Yeah. There are so many of us out there who are struggling and actually living life just by the numbers or by what we think we should be doing. And so many of us that actually want more. And so I help people to get that more and to find out what that actually looks like.
How did you figure out that was your why?
Well, I was one of those people once.
Yeah.
I have lived experience. I worked in corporate for 7 years as a mum, ran a part-time business at the time as well, and just realised I was running on the treadmill of my life, just busy from morning till night, never really stopping, probably not even for eating. And when I separated from the father of my kids, it's when that shake-up happened, I actually realised, what am I doing? I asked myself, what am I doing? Why am I here? Why am I doing this career? Why am I working in this job? Why am I getting up every day? And I realized that this is not how I wanted life to be. So I saw the shake-up in my life as an opportunity to really look at that again. What makes me happy? What does an extraordinary life actually look like to me? And it was through that personal journey that I also obviously looked at my career. And then there was also the reality of being a single mom and finances, you know. Now all of a sudden I'm doing as one person what we did with two people beforehand. So that's when I really started to look at my career and think about what I actually wanted to do, what lights me up. And I realized my life is full of people. I love people. I love hearing people's stories. And that's what I find so incredibly humbling about this job, is that I get to hear people's stories. I get to hear what makes them tick, how they got to the place where they are, why they believe what they believe, why they do what they do every day, and what really lights them up. And it's fascinating. I tell you ladies, it's amazing.
You learn so much from it, eh?
People are incredible. It's just the stories they've got to tell. It really is absolutely inspiring for me, but it's also very humbling to know that I get to help them, and I get to help them to have a greater quality of life.
Yeah.
Nice.
Love
Well,
that.
today we're talking about personal goals to get that quality of life. You know, in this podcast series, we've talked about business goals, we'll be talking about financial goals, but personal goals is obviously about the person.
Yes.
And that person will affect all of the other goals at the same time. But when it comes to personal goals, we want to hear some stories. You obviously help people set their goals.
Yes.
What have you got?
What goals have my clients got? Well, it really depends. It really depends. So I have clients who want to build huge businesses. I have clients that want to, start families. I have clients that actually they want it all. They want the house, they want the car, they want the career, they want the family, they want the holidays, they want to have everything. And, what's interesting to see is that a lot of them actually have shame around that.
Yeah.
Shame around the fact that they want it all, because we live in a world where, we've come to accept that it's either or. Well, I might be rich or I'll be happy, or I'll be healthy or I'll have my cheeseburger. Or, we live in a world of either or, whereas that's actually not true. It's totally possible to have everything. And it's really just about how do we build this everything in a way that really works for us personally and works for our families. So I think this is something that I speak quite a lot about, because I really think it's an old paradigm, this either or. And our world has changed so much that actually we can have all the things that we desire. We just have to give ourselves permission to actually go for that.
Yeah, on that, happiness versus money thing, there was some quote that I saw about, I'd rather cry in my Ferrari. Like, you can have it all.
Absolutely.
But you're still going to have issues, no matter which one.
Well, I think we all have challenges in life, right? And this is where we got to be really conscious of what our language is around this stuff. Right? We call them problems and issues. They're not really problems unless you view them as problems. They're challenges, and we all have them. And challenges come in any size, right? Big, small, medium, very large sometimes. But I believe that, and I think this is what gives us an incredible resilience and also an incredible joy in life, when we start to see these challenges as opportunities. Right?
Yeah, just changing your perspective on it all, eh?
Of course, sometimes things don't feel good, right? And if you're presented with a challenge that's really hard for you, where you literally just want to break down and cry, that's tough. That's really tough, and it's important to let ourselves feel that and allow ourselves to be in that messy space. But we also get to make the decision that, right, I'm actually going to use this opportunity as an opportunity to learn something, to do something different, to expand myself in one way or the other, and to actually use this as a positive thing in my life rather than something that's going to break me down or hold me back. So it's really about the mindset around that and what we choose to believe, because we actually have a choice, but we've got to know we have that choice.
Yeah, you've got to pick it up when it happens and be aware of it and sort of turn it into a habit, which then of course takes lots of practice. And
I want to stop on the language thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you call it a problem, it is a problem. What other examples of bad language can you have in your own mind?
I think we mentioned it before, the should.
Yeah.
Should's a really big one. So, and I remember sitting, actually, I did some counselling a few years ago on my own, because I realised that my own personal self-image was pretty low. It was quite self-deprecating, really, and very critical of myself, which when you meet me now, you wouldn't think that.
Not at all.
But I remember sitting in my counsellor's office and talking to her about it, and she said, Sophie, I noticed that you say a lot, I should be doing this, or I should feel that way, or shouldn't feel that way, or I should think this way. And she said, I want you to try something. I want you to try and exchange the word should with the word could. And here is why. And she explained to me that should implies that there is a rule that you need to adhere to, and that there is something that you are not meeting, or there's an expectation that you're not meeting, so there's pressure behind it. Whereas if you use the word could, it implies possibilities, right? I could be doing something, but I don't necessarily have to. If I choose to do it, then I can do that. Whereas the word should implies I really should be doing this, right? I really shouldn't be eating this piece of cake. I really should be going for a walk. It implies that we're doing something wrong. And subconsciously, that actually doesn't make us feel good about ourselves. No. And when we don't feel good about ourselves, we're not going to go for the things that we want to go for. We're not going to take the action that we need to take to get that big, audacious goal. And really, the way we feel about ourselves is the absolute key to everything and how we approach life. So it's such an important thing to think about and to notice the language that we use around ourselves. So I have quite a lot of clients that, they'll say about themselves that they're not doing enough, or that there's something wrong with them, or that, they're just not achieving, or they're not as good as another person, or, it's a comparison thing that comes in. And when we are constantly talking to ourselves like that, we start believing it.
Yeah, totally. I am so guilty of having gone through that.
We all are.
And so, like, with that, do you have any tips that you sort of help your clients with that? So, like, little methods or, kind of things.
Yeah.
Exercises to get them to, recognize that they're thinking negatively and turn that around?
Definitely. So the one thing that I speak about with every client is this idea of awareness, creating awareness of how we actually speak to ourselves, because we're so busy in our everyday lives that we go from this place to that place, we do this and we do that, and we're busy ticking off our task list, that we're not actually conscious about what it is that we're doing in this very moment. How are we doing it? So the first step to everything, to any change or any transformation, is always awareness. Becoming aware of the kind of language that we're using, becoming aware of the kind of habits that we have, becoming aware of the kind of conversations we have with other people, the kind of relationships we have with other people, and the relationship we have with ourselves. So that's the key thing to it all when it comes to starting off our journey, is bringing awareness to how we're actually operating in life. And we can do that anytime, anywhere. It's just making the conscious choice that actually I'm going to start paying attention towards the language that I use, you know, when I describe myself, whether that's in conversation with other people, whether that's in my work, whether that's in my personal life, and even the thoughts that I have about myself. Once we have this awareness, we can then think about, okay, well, how do I actually want to talk about myself? Because if I say want to be a woman that runs a multi-million-dollar business, is she going to tell herself that she isn't good enough? Well, probably not, because if she wants to build this $1 million business, she's going to have to believe in herself, right? So it's and once you have this goal, once you have this vision of where you want to be, you can then ask yourself, well, is the behavior or the way of thinking or the way of being that I'm currently operating in, is this actually aligned with where I want to go? And that's a really cool way, an easy way to make decisions around whether we want to continue a habit or continue a way of thinking or continue a way of being, and whether that's actually serving us. And to be honest, I just like, this is what I really love about the self-development work, is that there is no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. That's just what serves you and what doesn't serve you. And if it serves you, by all means continue. If it doesn't, change it, because you don't have to continue this. Like, we tend to, literally don't really have to do anything unless we tell ourselves that we have to.
Yeah, so the awareness, I think that has to start with you have an intention.
Yes.
So if I told you, if I asked you how many red cars did you see on the way to work this morning, you probably wouldn't have a clue. If I said that I would pay you $50 for every red car that you saw, you would then be looking for the red cars. So you have the intention. Okay, I'm speaking in a negative language to myself. I'm going to try and catch myself and replace should with could.
Yeah.
You got the attention, you get the awareness, and then it just keeps step after step, right?
Absolutely. And I love actually this example of the red car, because when you said, well, I'm going to give you $50 every time you see a red car, you've got an incentive. There is, because look, here's the thing about human beings. We actually either want pleasure or we're moving away from pain. So if you can create an incentive for
Hold on,
yourself,
say that again.
Yeah, whoa.
Say that again.
we move towards
I
pleasure
haven't heard that one.
and we move away from pain.
So there's one scale.
When it comes to, us humans are so incredibly complex, but we're also very simple, because essentially everything we do is driven by moving away from pain and moving towards pleasure. Everything. If you boil it down to the basics, that's what it is. And the reason I can explain to you why that is, because if we move away from pain, if we're experiencing pain, that means that, there will be chaos, we'll be out of control. There is a danger to our life, to our livelihood, or to something that we need in order to survive. It's all about survival when it comes to our body and our brain. Whereas, when it comes to pleasure, when we are experiencing pleasure, when we are thriving, we can only do that when we feel safe, when we feel in control, when we feel that, that we can thrive, that there is space for us to do that. And so this is what happens to a lot of my clients when they come to me. They're actually in that survival mode. They're so busy moving away from pain and they're trying to thrive, but they can't actually thrive because they're still so busy moving away from the pain or from the things that are really difficult for them.
Would it be considered normal to bounce around a bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Different areas of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, when we think of transformation or change, we think it's an A from A to B kind of thing. It's not.
It's such a journey.
It's an A to Z, and you're probably going to end up at 2 B's and 3 C's, and it's a back and forth. It's a squiggly road, not a straightforward, and that's okay. And it's actually part of it.
Progress.
Yes, it's actually part of it, and it's really important to embrace that and to not make ourselves wrong for it. There is not a single person in this world that has envisioned to create a change in their life and has gone from A to B. It just doesn't work that way. No. No matter how hard we try, and it's an adventure, and that's what I'm an adventure girl, so I really love looking at it that way. It's an adventure, everything that we do, and every time something else comes up, or if there's a repeated pattern that keeps occurring, it's something else to discover. We get to nerd out here and go, ooh, what's going on?
It doesn't stress you out. If you can see it as an adventure and an opportunity, it's suddenly not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a really good way to look at it.
I was going up the Kaimais down on my way down to Tauranga, and there had been a car crash, and unfortunately it was a fatality, which meant the whole road had to be closed and everybody had to turn around and go the long way. And I ran out of petrol. And I called my sister to let her know, and she was like, "Are you okay? Shall I come and get you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm going on an adventure." No, it really is, and it made it so that I wasn't stressed out or freaked out, or I was literally enjoying my journey.
Yeah, kind of laughing at it and going, that's interesting. And then,
It's like, absolutely. And I think if we can approach everything in life that way, life becomes so much easier. You know, often we're our own worst enemies, and it's not like we're doing it on purpose, because a lot of this stuff is very subconscious. As I said, how many of us are going through our everyday life thinking exactly about what we're doing, why we're doing, and how we're doing it. We're just usually just doing it because that's how we've always done it.
Yeah. Well, then when you're sitting down to assess your personal goals and you want to have it all, how on earth do you prioritise your different goals?
This is a really interesting question, and I've been thinking about that. So when it comes to setting personal goals, what I really like to do when I start off working with my clients is we do what is called the Wheel of Life exercise. I call it the Wheel of Joy because
I'm a fan.
Yes. And so it's a great exercise. And just for all the listeners, if you don't know what that is, the Wheel of Life exercise is a very holistic exercise that allows you to essentially rate and make sense of each area of your life and how fulfilled you are in each of those. I go a step further because I always ask my clients to then tell me, well, what are the 3 words that they associate with this area currently? So say if they're looking at the areas of finances and they have rated themselves maybe to be a 5 or a 6, what are the 3 words that they associate with it in this moment in time? And that gives us a really good clue as to what they are struggling with. Now, and I think when you've done this assessment, and I think it's something that we should actually be doing, or we could be doing regularly, because it gives us a really good idea of where we are holistically in our life. We often notice that, you know, there's an area of life we would like to improve, but what we often don't see is that there's probably multiple areas that need some attention. And through this Wheel of Joy, this Wheel of Life exercise, we actually get to see what those areas are. It's been really cool because I've had a client last year who, when he started working with me, his wheel was very sort of choppy and changey. So every spoke of the wheel was, you know, one was 8 and one was 3 and another one was 4, and if you then imagine that every spoke of those wheels is so different, if you were to have that as your wheel on your car, it'd be pretty bumpy, right?
Wouldn't be comfortable.
No. And so I give my clients, and I got him to do that as well, I then get them to do the Wheel of Joy again at the end of the program. And one thing we could see is that all the areas of his life had improved, and he was now consistently around an 8 or a 9 for every single one of them, which is an incredible improvement.
We were just talking the other day about, would it be possible to hit 10s in every area of your life?
Yes, I think it absolutely is possible, but what will happen is that the 10 becomes an 8, because then you realize actually there's something else.
There's room for more.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because I was like, yeah, I reckon. But then I was like, actually, no, I'm such a harsh scorer every time we do that. I'm like, no, this just got to always score lower than what it actually is, which I don't know what's up with that. But
well,
so
I know
like,
someone who could help.
Come in for a conversation. But yeah, in terms of having it all, I think there's a few things we got to think about. Firstly, we got to also look at where we are in the period of our life, right? I'm a mum of 2 girls. They're 8 and almost 12. So there are certain priorities that I have right now that if my kids were older, I didn't have them. So for example, my girls are only going to be young once, so I really want to spend a lot of time with them. Not that I don't want to do that when they're older, but they require a lot more attention. So when I think about what I prioritize in my life, that's a value of mine to prioritize them within my plans, right? And so this is where your values come in, and what you value the most in your life at this moment in time, because it can change over time. But at the moment, to give you an example, my highest values is freedom, which is why I'm a business owner, because I can work and do whatever I want, when I want it, how I want it, and so on. But then it's also connections, my people, my family. And so I know that whatever decision I make, I'm aware of that, and I can always go, okay, is this my priority right now? So when it comes to having it all, sometimes we can't have everything at the same time, or it's just not at the moment. That's not where the priority lies, all right? But it's about looking what is important in this moment in time. What is it that I need to focus on? So, for example, if your finances aren't great, but your well-being is even worse, you might want to focus on your well-being first, because that's going to influence
that you can work on your finances.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and for me, it's that there's sort of certain things you have to figure out for yourself that take priority over other things, and stagger it that way. But again, there's no right or wrong in this. There's just really what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and just remembering that the circumstances and where you are at this moment in time in your life isn't always going to be like this.
Yeah.
In 5 years and 10 years time, things will be different, or even in a year's time, things will change. And so, and that's the only constant in life, really, which just change. And so let's just embrace that and keep checking in with ourselves. So this is a conversation I have with every client, and I always say to them, you will not do one of my programs and be fixed forever. Like, this is a long-term commitment to yourself. I'm teaching you tools and ways of looking at things that you will then take forward into your life. But it is your responsibility to keep building on this, because we're building the foundations now. But if you really want to have this great quality of life and continue to have this great quality of life, you've got to continue to do the maintenance work. It's just like a house. You can't just stop maintaining it after you've, fixed it up once, because it needs love and care, and so do we on a regular basis, and really making us the priority.
I love that. You have to check out the article about the Wheel of Goals coming out very soon, if it's not out already, in the Gilligan Shepherd newsletter.
Cool.
How do you come obstacles to your goals? You set a goal, something's getting in the way. Do you just forget about the goal?
Sometimes. But the forgetting about it will come from an old program. So
what do you mean by that?
Programs are essentially the habits and ways of being we've created in the earlier years of our lives. So science has discovered that when we are about 4 or 5, they say that a majority of our habits and ways of being have been set right that early in our lives, right? Which is pretty crazy to think, right? So the base for how we operate in life gets set that early. So what tends to happen when we set a goal and we stop working towards it, right? This happens to so many of us when we set ourselves a New Year's resolution and we go, okay, I want to lose 5 kilos or whatever it is, and then we're really good at it in the beginning, right? We go to the gym and we stick to it for the first 4 weeks, and then all of a sudden something comes up and it's like, I won't go today, and then you might go again the next day, and then something else comes up, and then on the third day I'll go tomorrow, and you come up with all these excuses, right? As to why you can't continue. And there is multiple reasons for it. So there's this programming, because you've essentially spent 30, 40 years building these habits that weren't serving you, and now you're trying to change those habits. So it's natural that you're going to fall back, or what I like to call, you're going to fall off the bandwagon for a bit. That is really normal, and it's part of the process. What defines us in that moment is whether we choose to jump back on the bandwagon or not, or whether we're going to continue to make excuses for ourselves as to why we can't. Now, the other thing to explore is also, what was the reason that you set this goal in the first place? Are you setting this goal because you think that's what you should be doing?
Should.
There we go. There's that should again. Stop shitting yourself, guys.
Yeah.
Or have you set this goal because that's what you actually want, because that lights you up, because it's in line with your values and what's really important to you? So that it's really important to look at that and to get really clear on why we even set these goals.
I guess if you were going to keep, say you've gone back and you failed that goal, if you keep picking it up again and again and again, then you probably realise actually this does matter to me,
Yeah. Yeah, and look, there's the nature of changes, and I read this in the book, The 5 a.m. Club, which I can really recommend, because it's one of the only self-development books that I've read that is actually based on it's in a story. So they're teaching you all the self-development stuff through a story, which I really love. I love stories, obviously. That's why I work with people. But I love the way the writer and the author put the process of change. So when we set a goal, the first sort of third of that process of changing our habit or moving towards that goal is we're really motivated and we think, yeah, I got this, and we're really pumped. And then we start working towards it, and yeah, it might feel hard, but because we have that motivation behind us, we just keep going. And then comes the second stage, and this is where most of the people fall off the bandwagon. The second stage is the messy stage. It's where motivation's gone. It's where your old programming starts to pop back up. I'm like, cool, I might just Netflix on the couch tonight instead of actually going to the gym, which is what I'd set out to do. And we come up with excuses because our brain goes by the path of least resistance, right? And if we have old programs, old ways of doing things, that path is one that we already know we can go down because we've gone down it so many times. So we'll always choose that subconsciously over the hard bit, again, because we're moving away from pain, right? We want to go towards pleasure, and the path of least resistance is pleasure, because we've done it in the past and it's given us pleasure then. And so this middle stage is usually where people struggle, because that's when it gets messy. That's where coaches come in. That's where friends come in. That's where, really reminding yourself of why you are creating this change, why you are setting this goal, and why it's
either
important.
Accountability or it's support.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Well, ideally all.
Yeah.
Ideally you want to have it all somehow, because I really think we need to set up this network or these I suppose scaffolds for ourselves when we do fall off the bandwagon. And once we get through that messy stage, that's when things will get easier afterwards, because it becomes a new habit.
Yep.
And we want to habitualize everything we do in our life, right? We're able to habitualize Netflixing and eating crappy food, and all of those are habits. We can change those habits and replace them with better habits, but again, you go through this process of change. But it's so these three stages that we go through. And one thing that always helps me when I fall off the bandwagon, because I don't know about you ladies, but so many of us, I think, go into this self-loathing. Like, I did it again, I can never get it right. We start to really beat ourselves up.
This morning.
Okay, then this one's for you, Tori. This one's for you.
Snooze.
The only way how to lock in failure, in quotation marks, is by stop trying. That's the only way.
You only fail if you don't try again.
That's right. Because again, if you believe that this is possible for you, if you believe whatever you've set out to do is possible for you, it's going to happen. It is going to happen sooner or later, but how dedicated are you? And this is where the why comes in. How important is it for you for this to occur? So how dedicated are you to keep the course even when it gets tough?
Yeah. Are you ready to make it your top priority?
Let's talk about the driver of that, though. When you get to the why, there's obviously going to be head reasons.
Yeah.
But the heart has a lot to play in it.
Yes, it does. I think your why is always heart-driven. Our head's so logical, and and we live in a world where everything's been set up in a sometimes very actually non-logical way, but we make sense of things, and I think modern society has been very much built on the mind, driven by the mind. But when we set our why, or when we discover our why, because our why has always been there, it's just that we weren't conscious of what it really is. When we discover that why and we really connect to it through emotion, our mind is going to start following our heart.
Yeah,
and when
something about 3 seconds.
Yes, 6 seconds. So there's actually been studies, and this is fascinating, guys. Like this is amazing, because our ancestors knew all of this, right? Like they knew, not consciously, but they just subconsciously did all of this. And so our heart, they did some studies around that where they essentially showed people images on the TV, and then they would change it regularly. And what they notice, and then they would, measure their heart function, they measure their brain function, and what they discovered, the heart knew 6 seconds before they were going to change the channel. The heart knew 6 seconds before the brain had even just recognized that the change had happened. So the heart intuitively knew a change was coming before the change even happened.
Because is it like the desire is the heart and the head is like, should I do it or not?
I suppose so. I suppose so. I think our heart, and that's where intuition comes from. I think it's actually our greatest tool, and when our why is about connecting to that desire. It's just, unfortunately, we live in a world where a lot of us have been told to not want certain things, right? Like when we're a kid and you want a cookie, or you desire a cookie, you might be told, no, you can't have that now because of X, Y, and Z, or you shouldn't want that, or it's unhealthy, or like I'm totally guilty of that as a parent, right? But one thing I try to teach my children is that it's okay to want things. It's okay to have desires for it. And then why do we desire that? But really connecting to the emotion around what it is that we're setting. So if we're setting a personal goal, what's the emotion? Like, how are you going to feel when you have achieved this goal? Yeah. And what are the, what's your experience going to be? And to tap into that regularly, because it's going to naturally draw you towards achieving that goal.
Yeah, if you focus on the feeling that you're going to feel once you've got there.
Yeah, I like what you said before, Tori, as well, about how the 6-second heart thing, your heart goes, oh, that would be awesome, and then your brain goes, oh, but what if this and what if that, and that's where all the doubt comes in, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, the brain is designed to keep us safe. It's designed to judge, analyze, and essentially just keep us safe and make sense of our environment, right? Because that's, and this is a conversation I've had with a lot of clients recently, because it's so current, right? If we think back at our ancestors hundreds of years ago, one thing they were trying to physically survive, because it was about, when the tiger jumps out in the jungle, you've got to run away, you've got to get enough food on the table, you've got to find shelter, all of those things. But now physical survival isn't our top priority anymore, because most of us, unless you live in poverty, of course, and there's still countries where that is obviously, and even here in New Zealand where that's the case, but the majority of us in the Western world have food on our table, have a roof over our head, and so we're physically taken care of. And so now what starts to happen is that it's the secondary needs that start to become priority, right? Which is financial safety. I suppose that is also connected to, getting food on the table and those kind of things. But there's other things that now become priority, which is our mental health, which is how we feel about things. And when our ancestors, lived, that wasn't priority. Like how your mental state was not your priority, because you needed to survive physically.
Yeah. Now it's like first world problems.
Yeah. So totally. But they really are. But it's and what's interesting is that our biology hasn't changed. So our biology, our nervous system, the way our body operates is still the same way as it did 300-400 years ago, thousands of years ago. It's still the same thing. Yeah. But our world's changed so much. Like now we get our nervous system and our stress mode gets activated by emails and conversations and traffic and not having the right product in the supermarket because we thought we were going to, cook this for our dinner party for our friends, or whatever it is that stresses whatever it is that stresses you out. So it's a really interesting one, and I think it's a conversation that I really like to have, because it helps my clients see that actually they're just really dealing with kind of primal things in their body, but the world is so different. And how do we marry that in a way where we actually are working with our biology and working with how we are as humans, our nature.
Well, that brings me to what it's possible to set goals that are harmful to yourself.
Yes.
And obviously, hopefully that would be without realizing it. An example would be like trying to lose weight to a ridiculous amount that's not healthy. So how do you know whether your goals are harmful or not?
Well, I think the questions we have to ask ourselves is why did I set this goal? So for example, say if someone wants to go down to a size 8 or whatever it is in New Zealand sizes, a size 8, why do they want to be that size? Do they want to be that size because that's what they saw the model in the magazine?
Feel like they should.
They feel like they should.
Yeah.
And it comes back to that should, right? It comes back to what's the space that we're setting this goal from? Are we setting it from a space of this is how I should look? And then if I have this dress size, then I can wear these ridiculous clothes and I can do this and I can do that.
And I'll be happy. But
most
of the time they won't be at the end. Like if they're going off the should thing, you know.
Well, it's just a dangling carrot, right? So hypothetically, say that person does get to the size 8. They'll get to size 8 and they'll realize they're still not feeling happy with themselves. Yeah. And then a lot of people, because this does happen quite regularly, and people go, but I've got it now and I still don't feel happy. Yeah. So they set themselves another goal.
To lose more.
To lose more, or toxic, to I don't know, do whatever they feel they need to do next in order to feel better. And the reason for that is that they didn't actually resolve the psychological stuff underneath. Like, why does this woman feel like she needs to be a size 8? Yeah. Right? When she's probably already extremely beautiful at size 12, 14 and 16. Yeah. So what are we measuring ourselves against, and why are we setting this goal? Are we setting this goal because it lights us up, or are we setting this goal because we think that's what we need to do? And so when we set goals, I think it's really important that we ask ourselves that question and we're really aware of why we're actually setting that. So in that sense, goals can, I suppose, become harmful. Yeah. Because look, in the end, here's this thing. Your well-being and your health is always priority. If you are not well and if you are not healthy, you cannot enjoy, no matter how many riches or boats or cars or relationships or whatever you have, none of that matters if you are not healthy and well enough to enjoy any of that. True. So it has to be our priority. And what we need to do for our well-being really differs from person to person. So for me, for example, I'm a social person. Healthy relationships is part of I need this to be well, right? Or to have really connected relationships. It's really important to me. But what's also important to me is have alone time. What's important to me to be able to journal, to be able to meditate, to be able to do yoga and out in nature. Like those are well-being bringers for me.
It does seem to be a lesson that we keep learning. Yeah. That you don't appreciate your health until it's gone. Yeah. Or you don't have it as much as you thought you did. And you don't even think about it when you've got it. So hopefully everybody can take note and learn it before they have to experience it. All right. On personal goals, I'd like to know your absolute gold nugget. What is your best advice around personal goals?
My best advice around personal goals is that you don't wait. Don't wait to set those goals. Don't wait to go for the things that light you up. Don't wait to start that business. Don't wait to start looking after your health. Don't wait to start to create those beautiful relationships you want to have. Don't wait for those things, because life is short. I mean, it's long, but it's short at the same time. Yeah. And what happens so often is that we go, I'll do it next year, right? And I'll give you an example, because I went through this as well when I retrained as a coach. And I actually didn't even retrain as a coach with the real intention of starting a business. I just felt drawn to the work, and it was more of a personal interest that I had. And I got through the course and I thought, this is amazing. I can't believe how powerful this is and how it can change people's lives, and just how much I dig this work. And, I remember coming back from Australia from my course, and 4 days before the borders closed. So just got in there. But 2 weeks later, lockdown hit. And my girls were away at their dad's for a week, and I had real time to think. And I thought, cool, I actually think I want to start a business. This makes sense. I'm drawn to this. I love this work. Financially, it makes sense. It gives me all the flexibility that I want for my children. But then my head came in, and I thought, I'll do it next year. I'll wait. I'll wait for another 9 months or something. And because it was lockdown, and yes, I could talk to people obviously online, but there was nowhere else to go with my thoughts. And what also came in was my intuition going, why are you waiting? Like, what's the purpose of this waiting? And I thought, I don't actually know. And what I realized is that the reason I wanted to wait was actually because I was afraid. I was
Yeah.
fearful. There
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
fear there. Like,
Yeah.
what if it fails? What if I'm not good enough? You
All
know,
the
like
head
all
stuff.
of that stuff,
Yep.
right? And so what I did is, without thinking about it too much, I was like, screw it. I'm just going to do it. And 3 months later, I launched my business, and I am so happy that I did. It was the best thing I ever did for myself. One of the best things I ever did for myself. And also, obviously, for my clients, because I now get to share this beautiful work and create such an impact in the world.
Screw it, do it.
Yeah.
Because of course, if you don't, then it's not a failure; it's a lesson, and you figure out another strategy on how to still get there.
That's right.
You'll never know if you don't actually just do it.
Yeah,
That's right. And
Yeah.
you'll come up with a million reasons as to why you can't, or why you shouldn't, or why you might have to wait, or, you know, what's in the way. There's always something in the way. And it's kind of like when you have kids, it's never the right time. just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Yeah.
Except you can't go back on that.
yeah.
No, no.
Watch that one.
Do it. Have children.
Thank you, Sophie. Really appreciate your time with us today. And if our listeners want to ask Sophie any questions, they can find her on her website or through her LinkedIn and Facebook, which we'll put in the show notes. So thanks again for your time, Sophie.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a lovely conversation, and it's just such a joy to be around you two ladies.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Boxes and Briefs is proudly brought to you by Gilligan Shepherd, the problem solvers in business.